In today's world, the one who talks the most usually loses the most. We live in a culture addicted to noise. Everyone's broadcasting, posting, over-explaining, desperate to be heard. But here's the twist. Power doesn't belong to the loud. It belongs to the quiet, to those who know when to shut up. Niccolo Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. While the world clings to performative transparency, Machiavelli saw that speech creates appearances, but silence protects reality. In his words, the vulgar crowd is always taken by appearances. And what creates appearances faster than words? Constant talking, oversharing, reacting. But the ones who win, they don't shout, they don't explain, they don't overshare. They sit back, they watch. And they speak only when silence has already done half the work. Strategic silence isn't avoidance, it's dominance. While others reveal their cards, the silent player studies the table. They move second, but strike first. Because in a world where everyone's racing to be heard, the one who waits is the one who sees everything. And that silence, it becomes their weapon, their shield, their leverage. So the next time you feel the need to explain, to defend, to over-communicate, pause. Because sometimes saying less isn't weakness, it's war. Let's get one thing straight. Every time you open your mouth, you're making a trade. And most people don't even realize they're selling pieces of their power with every word they say. Machiavelli lived in a time where loose lips didn't just cost you status, they cost you your life. But even today, in a world that's far less lethal, the consequences of unnecessary speech are still brutal. They don't kill you physically, they kill your advantage. Here's why. Speech creates commitments. The second you speak your plans out, loud people lock you into them. You say you're going to do something and suddenly you're expected to follow through. But what happens when conditions change? If you pivot, you look inconsistent. If you backtrack, you look weak. But if you say nothing at all, you stay fluid. You adapt without explanation. You move without asking permission. That's power. Speech exposes your mind. The more you explain, the more you expose. When you talk too much, you reveal how your mind works. People start to see your logic, your fears, your blind spots. They can predict you, counter you, manipulate you. You've handed over your blueprint without even realizing it. Machiavelli put it simply. The first method for estimating the intelligence of a ruler is to look at the men he has around him. Now flip that. The first method for estimating someone's strategic capacity is listening to how much they reveal and how carelessly. Speech destroys mystique. Let's be honest, people don't respect the person who explains everything. They respect the one they can't quite figure out. Mystery builds intrigue, distance creates authority, and both vanish the moment you talk too much. Machiavelli famously said, "It is far safer to be feared than loved." And fear doesn't come from shouting louder. It comes from leaving things unsaid. The quiet person in the room owns the room, the one who doesn't rush to respond, the one who doesn't justify, doesn't defend, doesn't beg to be understood. That's the one who radiates control. Not all silence is created equal. In fact, Machiavellian silence isn't the absence of speech. It's a weaponized form of communication. A sharp blade disguised as restraint. And it comes in three forms, each more powerful and more dangerous than the last information-gathering silence. This is the silence of the observer. The silence that listens while others reveal everything. You've seen it happen. People who speak too quickly, too often, thinking they're asserting power. But Machiavelli knew better. The wise man does at once what the fool does finally. And the fool, he speaks first. He shows his hand. He exposes his intentions before even knowing the rules of the game. The one who listens longer wins. In a negotiation, the first to speak usually loses. In relationships, the one who speaks less understands more. And in war, the side that gathers intelligence while remaining silent always strikes first. This type of silence flips the power dynamic. While others expose their weaknesses, you stay in the shadows, collecting data, reading patterns, watching the battlefield unfold. You remain unreadable. They become transparent, authority building silence. Power doesn't shout. It whispers or says nothing at all. Machiavelli understood that true authority isn't loud, it's selective. It's the CEO who speaks briefly but decisively. The leader who doesn't rush to justify every move. The powerful don't explain, they state. And that's why their words hit harder. He wrote, "A prince must imitate both the lion and the fox. And the fox, he knows when words cost more than they're worth." Silence, when used correctly, builds presence. People begin to fill in the blanks with assumptions, usually favorable ones. The less you say, the more others think they know you. And that illusion, that mystery, that ambiguity, it commands respect, because when someone only speaks on the things that matter, every word becomes a declaration. Every sentence becomes strategy. Ambiguity preserving silence. Sometimes silence isn't about control or intel, it's about freedom. Freedom to shift, to pivot, to deny, to move without explanation. Machiavelli said, "It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. But more than that, it is safer to be uncertain than to be predictable." Ambiguity preserving silence is about letting people project what they want to see. You become the canvas. They paint the image. This is why politicians speak in riddles, why elite negotiators give no clear position, and why powerful people often speak in vague visions rather than fixed plans. Because the moment you define yourself, you limit yourself. But if you remain unclear, you stay untouchable. This is the silence that keeps enemies guessing, allies aligned, and everyone else unsure of where you stand until it's too late. The human brain hates informational voids. When someone goes quiet during a conflict, a negotiation, or even a casual conversation, we fill that silence with our own fears, hopes, and assumptions. You go quiet, and they start guessing. Are you angry? Are you planning something? Did you see through their bluff? Their mind starts spinning in a storm of imagined outcomes. You haven't revealed a thing, but they've revealed everything through their reaction to your silence. Machiavelli understood this. He wrote, "Men are so simple and so much inclined to obey immediate needs that a deceiver will never lack victims, and silence makes them deceive themselves." Second, silence establishes dominance. In communication, the person who talks first often signals need for approval, need for control, need to be understood. But the one who holds silence, that's the person who holds the power. They're not trying to win anyone over. They don't chase validation. And that restraint, that control, signals psychological superiority. In every boardroom, in every relationship, in every negotiation, pay attention. The quiet one isn't always the weakest. Often they're the observer, the strategist, the lion waiting behind the brush. Third, silence creates mystique. People don't fear what they know. They fear what they can't predict. And nothing is harder to predict than a mind that doesn't speak unless it must. The more you reveal, your thoughts, your strategies, your insecurities, the more ordinary you become. And ordinary people are replaceable. But if you speak rarely and only with purpose, every word starts to feel like it matters. People lean in. They analyze your tone. They wonder what you're hiding. That's not weakness. That's psychological. Leverage. As Machiavelli said, men judge generally more by the eye than by the hand, because it belongs to everybody to see, but to few to feel. In other words, people respect what they can't fully touch. And when you master the art of strategic silence, you don't need to fight, you just need to watch them as the other side destroys itself trying to fill in your blanks. We live in a world that worships authenticity. Just be honest, speak your truth, be transparent. But Machiavelli would laugh at this naivete, not because honesty is wrong, but because unfiltered openness is a strategic liability. And the truth is, Most people don't want honesty. They want leverage. Every time you over-explain, every time you share prematurely, your vulnerabilities become someone else's map. Transparency, despite how virtuous it sounds, is often an unguarded gateway to manipulation. It makes you readable, predictable, controllable. Machiavelli understood that the promise you make today becomes the rope around your neck tomorrow. He wrote, "The promise given was a necessity of the past. The word broken is a necessity of the present." In other words, when you declare your intentions too soon, you trap yourself. You give others the blueprint to block, counter, or exploit you. And if you change course, you're now seen as weak, dishonest, inconsistent. This isn't about lying. It's about strategic omission. It's about not volunteering information unless it serves a purpose. Look around. In workplaces, people rush to share ideas before they're fully formed, then watch them get stolen or shot down. In relationships, people overshare past mistakes hoping for connection, only to be judged and dissected. In negotiations, one side reveals their hand too early, thinking they're being open, while the other side listens and wins. Machiavelli wouldn't call this authenticity. He'd call it amateurism, because transparency, when not measured, becomes a voluntary surrender of power. And here's the twist. The more you speak, the more people think they understand you. But the less they respect you. Because mystery breeds authority, and predictability kills influence, so no, silence isn't suspicion, it's strategy. It's the refusal to hand out ammunition to those who might not shoot now, but will when it benefits them. In a world that's obsessed with sharing, the rare few who speak only when it matters command the room without ever raising their voice. Let's get something straight. Strategic silence is not about muting yourself. It's about knowing when your silence speaks louder than anything you could say. In Machiavellian terms, silence isn't weakness. It's camouflage. It's the pause before the strike. So how do you use this in the modern world, where everyone's talking, oversharing, and posting every random thought for validation? Here's how. Master information asymmetry. Before you speak, listen. Before you reveal, your stance, read the room, because the first person to speak gives away the most. The one who holds back gains the most. In business, in conflict, in negotiation, don't rush to state your position. Instead, ask, observe. Let the other side expose their cards, their limits, their desires. Then you act, not before. Machiavelli knew, the wise man does at once what the fool does finally. The modern fool tweets his thoughts before he even understands the game. You gather intelligence while they perform. Practice. Strategic ambiguity. Clarity is a double-edged sword. It locks you into a path. But ambiguity, that's freedom, that's flexibility. You don't need to explain your plans to everyone. You don't owe clarity to people who haven't earned your trust. In leadership, in relationships, even in casual conversation, say just enough to intrigue, never enough to be predictable. Make others guess. Let them fill in the blanks with their own fears or fantasies. Because once you give up all your details, you become easy to anticipate and easy to control. Build tolerance for silence. Here's the truth most people won't admit. Silence terrifies them. They speak to fill the void, not because they have something valuable to say, but because they're uncomfortable with the stillness. And that's exactly when they reveal too much. In negotiation, let your silence make them squirm. In conflict, let your silence sting louder than your words ever could. In leadership, let your silence be the space where others realize your decisions are not up for debate. Train yourself to be the one who waits, because the one who can hold silence longest controls the frame. Speak only to advance objectives. Ask yourself, does this need to be said? And does it serve my purpose? If not, don't say it. Machiavelli didn't say, never speak. He said, speak with strategy. When your words are rare, they carry weight. When they're constant, they get ignored, so hold your tongue. Not out of fear, but out of precision. Because people don't remember noise, they remember impact. Let silence reveal the enemy. When you say less, others say more, and in that vacuum, they'll show you who they are. They'll project, they'll confess, they'll expose their insecurities, just to fill the discomfort. And that's when you strike. You don't win by out-talking your opponents. You win by letting them over-talk themselves into a mistake. Use silence to reinforce authority. True authority doesn't explain itself. It doesn't justify. It doesn't defend. It simply acts. When you stop responding to every challenge, every rumor, every complaint, people stop testing you. When you don't flinch at criticism or over-explain your choices, you shift from participant to judge. And in a world where everyone wants to be heard, the one who doesn't needs to be watched. Power doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers, and when it does, it's the whisper that echoes the longest. Machiavelli's silence was never about muteness. It was about timing, about contrast, about knowing that when the world is screaming, the quiet voice, the rare voice, is the one that commands attention. The strategic whisper is not the absence of speech. It's discipline disguised as silence. It's saying only what serves your objective, nothing more. Because in a world addicted to expression, disclosure, and emotional spillage, the person who withholds becomes a magnet. Their silence makes people lean in. Their reticence creates intrigue. Their few words carry the weight of 1,000. The whisper cuts through noise. It's not louder, but it's sharper. You don't need to explain everything. You don't need to justify, qualify, or defend. You speak when it moves the outcome, and you stay silent when your silence moves them. That's how mystique is built. That's how respect is maintained. That's how influence grows without shouting for it. Because Machiavelli understood something most never will. The vulgar crowd is always taken by appearances. And in a world full of noise, silence is the rarest appearance of all, master. This, and you won't just speak. You'll strike. You won't just be heard, you'll be remembered. Because while others waste their power explaining, you whisper and win. Here's the twist that most people never notice. The most powerful players aren't the loudest. They're the quiet ones you overlook. While the world celebrates those who talk the most, post the most, and perform their emotions for public approval, the real winners move in silence. They don't announce their plans. They don't justify their actions. They don't beg for recognition. And because they never draw attention to their methods, you never realize how much they've already won. This is the final Machiavellian irony. True mastery leaves no fingerprints. The masses remember the loud, the flashy, the dramatic, but those who use strategic silence win in ways that can't be traced back to them. They don't need credit. Their influence is felt, not seen. Their power is respected, not paraded. Machiavelli himself is the perfect example. History often labels him as a symbol of manipulation and ruthlessness, but very few grasp his deeper message, that control is rarely achieved by force, and influence is more often a matter of restraint than aggression. In a world where everyone's shouting to be heard, the one who remains silent becomes the only one who's truly listened to, and by the time people realize it, they've already lost to the one who said nothing at all. If this message resonated with you, if you understand that real power doesn't scream, it whispers, then you already think differently than the crowd, and that means you're exactly who this channel was made for. So shut out the noise, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and leave a comment below. What's one situation where silence gave you more power than words ever could? Let the others keep talking. We're here to observe, to understand, and to win quietly. Stay sharp, stay silent, and remember, Machiavelli wasn't ruthless, he was precise.